Welcome to the Commander and MTG podcast, everyone. I'm Phil DeLuca, and my fellow hosts are...
Sean Copain Watson.
And Nate Burgess.
We're your friendly neighborhood Commander community-oriented podcast, and we put a spotlight on the goings-on of the EDH/Commander community. Each episode, we will talk about topics you want to hear about and focus on listener contributions. Remember to check us out on Twitter, at Commander and MTG, not at, and contribute to us there. Remember, on this podcast, we have 3 banned topics. Religion, politics, and Hearthstone. We will never, ever talk about any of those.
Good.
This episode, we're welcoming our first guest, Jason E. Alt from Brainstorm Brewery.
Whoa. I knew I was a guest. I did not know I was the first guest.
Well, we've only done 4 podcasts, this being the 4th.
That's a lot of pressure.
Hang on.
Well, we did interview some people.
Yeah, there were guests on episode 2.
That's true. I'm sorry.
Did that one never get released?
No, that one did get released. This week we discuss Phil's deteriorating memory. Have you been playing with blue planeswalkers again, Phil?
Oh, every day. All by myself. So Jason is at Jason E. Alt on Twitter, and his podcast is at brainstormbrewery.com. He focuses on, actually the podcast focuses on Magic the Gathering finance. He coined the phrase 75% decks, and just tonight, I think, Jason, you saw the Twitter. I think you saw the tweet, Jason. I'm calling him the Minister of Magic Finance.
That sounds like a job. That's not what I need in my life. I don't want to drive to the Ministry of MTG Finance every day and answer a bunch of letters from the barely literate.
Don't you stumble out of bed and walk into the ministry?
I mean, I'm not even the first. Some would say I'm not even the most prolific. I just, I don't know. I do MTG finance all the time. It's kind of what I do. Buying, selling collections, speculating, writing. It's a good life. I like it.
It's better than going to a cubicle every day.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah, so later on we'll talk about 75% decks and that entire philosophy, which I think many people have embraced. It's awesome. I remember when you first published that article, and we're kind of taken by surprise at how popular it was.
Well, me too.
And then we'll go into MTG Finance, but first, Jason, like the rest of us, you've probably been watching the latest news, specifically the Magic Origins spoilers. So what do you think about them so far?
I think as an EDH player, I don't use the C word. I'm sorry, but it's fun because my editor on Gathering Magic has to go through and change every instance of EDH to Commander. So I figure if they're going to enforce the style guide, I'm going to make them work for it. As an EDH player, I'm looking at 5, maybe more, probably 5 brand new spanking planeswalkers that are going to be usable as EDH generals.
Yeah. Because
they're legendary creatures that are going to flip into planeswalkers. I'm very excited about that. Liliana's kind of okay. I've got a feeling that the Chandra we saw online was probably fake.
We're going to discuss that in a sec.
Okay, but other than that, I think Avaricious Dragon is
excellent.
It's pretty good, and I'm thinking like decks where you don't need a hand. Like if Scion is your commander and all you're doing is going and getting dragons out of your deck, I think having a grafted Skullcap with wings is pretty legit. I'm not sure if that's going to get played in 60-card decks, but it certainly could. We just haven't seen a ton of rares other than the really bad rares from the Magic Origins sample decks. The 15th reprinting of Aegis Angel, Fat Mod, and Shivan Dragon and whatever.
I've always wanted to pay 5 mana for a Oblivion Ring on a creature.
So, I think Hixus, I kind of wish he were 2 colors. But other than that, we need to see some more rares. This looks like it'll be just a typical core set in terms of limited, but as far as EDH goes, I haven't seen enough cards to say anything, but I'm certainly, at least the prospect of 5 brand new planeswalkers that could be generals is exciting.
Yeah, it is
probably one of them will be good.
I'm excited about the Jace. Everyone likes a Jace.
Yep, that's 2 chances to have a planeswalker as your general in mono blue. I think that'll be out of the 2 of them, probably one of them will be.
Yeah, I think the Liliana's excellent. I mean, her trigger to make her flip is very easily achieved.
And you got a free zombie.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. That's her brother Nigel of the Dark Realms. She's got a little bit of everything. I think she's great.
Yeah, but it's especially, hey, free zombie.
Free zombie.
Yeah.
Each player discards a card. Do you think that's in order to make Waste Not more useful?
Oh, that would be handy.
It's mirroring Liliana of the Veil, isn't it? Which is
Right.
an expensive card because of Modern. It's a great card as well.
We said we were going to talk about the Chandra, the possibly false one, right?
Yeah, so shall I read this one out?
Sure, go ahead.
So it's, if this is real, it's Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, is 1 and 2 red, a 2/2 creature, so mirroring the CMC and power and toughness of the Liliana. Whenever you cast a red spell, untap Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, tap. Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh deals 1 damage to target player. If Chandra has dealt 3 damage or more this turn, exile her, return to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. Before we discuss the flipped side, do we think that trigger is achievable?
That sounds really difficult compared to have a creature die.
Well,
Yeah.
On one thing, if you're casting 2 red spells in one turn, it's not difficult for like a goblin deck that consistently plays 2 or more goblins every turn. Also, it doesn't specifically say that the damage has to come from her tap ability.
True. She needs vigilance then, doesn't she?
So if she does combat damage for 3 or more in a turn, then you can flip her.
Yeah, but that means you're going to put probably maybe an aura on her, then when it flips you lose the aura, or you're wasting a card on a combat trick just to access this Planeswalker, which I'm not sure is worth it if it's real. So Chandra the Roaring Flame is a 4 loyalty... Roar. Is a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. +1, Chandra deals 2 damage to target player. -2, deals 2 damage to target creature. Meh. -7, Chandra Roaring Flame deals 6 damage to each opponent. Each player dealt damage this way gets an emblem which says at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So you set them... 3 damage, sorry.
That's
3 damage to you. Which means you set them on fire and lightning bolt them every turn.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I really like the ultimate, but it's a long road to get there, because to get there you have to poke another player or players repeatedly, and that's going to draw you some hate.
would that card be okay if it was 3 damage to target player and 3 damage to target creature on the +1 -2?
Might be a little too good for... I don't know, it's almost like never going to flip in Limited, so it's really tough to say that would be too good for Limited.
Yeah.
There's a lot that rings false about this, and maybe I'm like a little too skeptical because there's been so much just fakery going on, people trying to fake each other out. There have been like, hey, we leaked the banned and restricted list announcement a day early, and Stoneforge Mystic spiked as a result of that, and it was clearly false. The dates were wrong and stuff like that. So people will fall for just about anything, and there's a fake card every cycle. So the biggest thing we saw was the Modern Masters fake spoilers.
Oh, the list,
Yeah.
yeah. I bought into that and had a conversation with Phil about it and laughed as they were going to reprint all the Phyrexian Parators.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was actually something I predicted. I thought they would do a cycle, and since they did the Elder Dragon, or the Spirit Dragons last time, I thought a cycle made sense. So when they kind of confirmed that, I was kind of like, yeah, that seems fine. But the fact that the guy had pictures last time, it didn't have anything this time, a lot of it just felt fake. And I was one of the few people that said, I think this is probably fake, and got a lot of downvotes on Reddit from my pains. But it felt good to be vindicated. I was a little disappointed Mythic Spoiler actually ran it, because normally they've never been fooled by fake stuff before. So even the fakers are getting a little bit more sophisticated, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was fake. There's a lot that rings false to me.
Yeah, but if the upside is that these sites start to become more like journalists, then kudos to the people who have been faking them out.
So if you presume this Chandra is real, I'd be really disappointed, because speaking of someone that's tried to use different Chandras, they always feel, for the signature red Planeswalker, her cards that are currently in print always feel a little bit disappointing. They've never quite mastered what to do with a burn Planeswalker, as far as I can see.
Are you saying that's true in Commander, or?
I think it's true in Magic. Chandra's never really seen any kind of major standard play. I'm sure there'll be someone out there who's got a wonderful story about taking down some tournament with a Chandra. But
Firebrand got, a little bit of standard, a little bit of legacy play. And Chandra Ablaze, there was a big mana red deck it was all in red. It was using like Days of Calamity, and one of their curve toppers was Chandra Ablaze, the 6 mana one, because it was unplayable because it was so expensive. But if you're, Rite of Flaming into it, it makes sense.
I've used that one in a Nekasar deck just to do the mini wheel that she does. That's that one, isn't it? That dump your hand, draw 3.
Yeah, discards and then draws 3 cards.
I have the Firebrand in my Ashling.
I think there needs to be a Chandra card that is really well costed, really decent, and they've never quite mastered that.
Or come up with a different red planeswalker who isn't Tibalt.
Or Koth.
Yeah, because Koth was fine, you know.
Yeah, Koth is okay. Yeah, not bad. Anyway, we're presuming this is probably fake.
Yeah, I think we can all see, just because of the mechanics alone, it just looks pretty bad.
Giving another player an emblem seems problematic. It's like give another player an errand. Like, now you have to remember this every turn.
Yeah, there's anything else? The only thing comparable is, there's one of the Sorins gives you an emblem every turn, is it? Yourself one, the +1 to your creatures or something?
Yeah.
It's a pseudo emblem, yeah, but yeah.
Baby emblem.
It's like the only one that's ever been stackable.
Outside of Ultimates.
Compared to Narset's emblem, where it says your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. So it's addressing all your opponents in the emblem.
I think this is, because it's essentially going to be, this is purely thinking from a commander design point. Maybe if they're presuming this is going to be used as a commander, the ability to give your opponent multiple emblems that stack, because if you had it where you just have one with that stack, I don't even know how the rules would work on that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it is a lot more threatening in Tiny Leaders.
Yeah, of course. We're going to discuss Tiny Leaders in a bit. Goddamn Tiny Leaders. Actually quite like playing.
I'm still not convinced that's a real thing. I think that's an elaborate prank on the finance industry.
I have a listener question about Tiny Leaders coming up later, so if we can just hold that thought.
Why don't we move into our next segment then? Jason, we do a little segment that we like to call the Watch List. In this segment, we focus on cards that we think are problematic, not necessarily ban-worthy, but they have an impact on the meta when they're played. They become popular and inevitably get tuned against to reduce their impact. Now, Sean, you want to introduce this one? Or Jason, do you want to introduce it?
I'll do it. It's my card. I'll do it. Kind of like what, Old Yeller? I'll take this card out behind the barn and put 2 in its skull.
It's my dog, Pa.
Yeah, the card it's my favorite EDH card. It's Prophet of Crufix. Some of you probably just made a guttural noise when I said those words. Listening in your cars or your cubicles or whatever, like, ah! Prophet of Crufix is a card that lets you cheat at Magic and take every turn.
For 5 mana.
For 5 mana.
Just on the record, this segment, the Watch List segment, was almost called the honorary Prophet of Crufix Hall of Fame segment, just to give you the context of how widely debated this card is.
Yeah, this is one of, I would say, 3 cards I see discussed at great length when people are talking about cards that are legal right now that should get banned. People really want Deadeye Navigator banned. People really want Prophet of Crufix banned, and people really want Consecrated Sphinx banned.
I disagree.
Prophet
with
comes up time and again. Well, I disagree with all 3 of them. I think they're all fine, but that's me personally.
Consecrated Sphinx should go away.
Phil, stop it. You're a racist. What's wrong with Phyrexians? Anyway, Prophet of Crufix. Nate, what does Prophet of Crufix do?
3 colorless, a green and a blue, creature, human, wizard. It's a 2/3, but who cares? It's got 2 sentences on it. Untap all creatures and lands you control during each other player's untap step. That's every other player. The next sentence, you may cast creature cards as though they had flash. So on other players' turns. If only you had the mana. Oh, wait, you do.
Hey, you can't untap your mana rocks, okay? It's not totally busted.
Oh.
Yeah, that Soul Ring remains tapped out.
As long as this card isn't in a colour set which can get loads of creatures and access to the cards in the deck very easily. Oh, hang on, it's green and blue, isn't it? Ugh.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can't use that mana, it goes to waste, I guess, unless your commander's Crufix, huh? Wow, I'm bumming myself out with my favorite card.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
okay, why...
She has only a 2/3.
That's
Super killable.
Yep.
She's within lightning bolt range, which you know is a big problem.
That's
in
a
Commander.
staple in Commander. Lots of people are playing... She dies to skeletonized dudes, come on.
So why is she hotly debated amongst playgroups for being banned? I know at least one play group that house bans this card. It's not mine, but yeah.
She makes the game take forever because the Prophet of Crufix player has to be like, hang on, during your upkeep, or I'm going to play 2 creatures.
I
And everyone's like, oh, you just had a turn.
I find it's worse than that because they say during your upkeep, hang on, I'm going to untap everything, and it's during your end step they play creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get interrupted twice.
Yep. So
That's a thing, too. And sometimes I like to cascade on their turn.
Sorry.
I do that with my Maelstrom Wanderer deck. Yeah. I've cascaded into a second and third cascade with a Prophet Crucifix. I'm going to Prophet Crucifix my Maelstrom Wanderer in, which, there's a Bloodbraid Elf. Oh, look, there's a Shardless Agent. Yay! I just get looked at.
I won't take Shardless Agent out of my... It doesn't need to be in the deck. It's like, I'm getting a Simic Signet. That's what I'm getting, but, like, I leave it in there. Just so I can pick up, like, half of my deck and go through it before I find something. Because that's what I like.
I occasionally whiff into a Coiling Oracle.
Not much of a whiff, really. That's, like, the dream, right?
So I find one of the problems with Prophet Crucifix is as soon as she hits the table, the game stops being Magic the Gathering and becomes who can kill, exile, steal, control, copy, or otherwise abuse the Prophet Crucifix that's on the table.
Yeah, so any beginners to EDH who don't understand all the rules and don't know the threats, if you see Prophet of Crucifix at the table, that's going to be the number one focus of the table.
Well, that depends what else is on the table.
Well, in most cases, if you don't already know what the number one focus is, then there you go.
Yeah, it's certainly up there in a list of cards that when they hit the table, if you're a bit lost and it's your early days of playing Commander or Magic, and you're like, what the hell is all these old cards I've never seen? I've only ever played Standard before getting into this crazy format.
Well, let's play a little game right now. First card that comes to mind, I want you to name, and we'll start with Jason, a card that draws more attention than Prophet of Crucifix.
Consecrated Sphinx.
Sean?
Sorry, Markov.
Nate?
Nevin Earl's Disc.
Can you name a card from this century?
And so, really, you hate Consecrated Sphinx that much? I mean, I do too, but...
Everything you're saying about Prophet, when it hits the table, people copy, fight, kill it, try to take it. Like, that's the number one card because that person's they're gonna get out of control in a couple turns.
Yeah, my Lazav deck, which is literally my first Commander, and I've tuned that over and over again. He loves to become a Prophet or a Consecrated Sphinx. If he comes either of them as they hit the graveyard, I'm in Magical Christmas land, especially if I've made him indestructible as well, which is likely. It's glorious.
Well, we know there are some cards it's comparable to, and we'll just sort of breeze through these. And Nate, you made these selects. Why don't you call them out?
Oh, yeah. So Prophet of Crucifix, it costs 5, and most of these cards cost about 5. And Prophet of Crucifix is basically you choose any 2 of these cards. So Seedborn Muse is a green spell, green creature. Murkfiend Liege is a blue and green creature. Yiva, Nature's Herald, is a legendary creature. Alchemist Refuge is a land that gives you flash. And Vidalcan Orrery is an artifact that gives you flash.
Boy, say Orrery 3 times fast.
Orrery, Orrery, Orrery.
You sounded silly.
So there's also Leyline of Anticipation, because you'll be in blue
yeah.
if you're playing your Prophet, which is an orrery and enchantment form that you might get for free if it's in your opening hand. Yeah, Flash is great. Great at power.
Flash is great. Untapping all your creatures and and lands, rather. That's also great, especially in conjunction with Flash.
Definitely not abusable.
So now, we're kind of talking about cards that kind of invite abuse, both of the player playing those cards and by the player playing those cards. Is that kind of overpowered card collection what inspired you, Jason, to coin the term 75% decks?
I felt like I had a different deck building ethos, because I didn't want to be the bitter ordeal Shroom deck. So I just built a Maelstrom Wanderer deck that's not 75%. It never was. You can't. It's tough with Maelstrom Wanderer. I think the article I wrote about Maelstrom Wanderer is kind of like, well, you're gonna do really mean stuff, and you just gotta hope that they don't think it's your fault because you're like, oh, that came up randomly. I guess I win. Herp.
As a long-standing Maelstrom Wanderer player, yeah, that happens.
Oh, well, it's just the deck. It's not me. I didn't do it. I cascaded into Kiki Jiki and Pestermiter. I actually use Zealous Conscripts because it's non-useless outside the combo. So I think that's fun. So you can be like, oh, well, I just cascaded into it. I didn't mean to. It's not my fault. But the other decks I built were sort of just they're not trying to win every game. You know, I figure if there are 4 players at the table and you win 1 out of every 4 games, your deck's probably just about right. 1 out of 4 or 2 out of 4. If you're trying to win 4 out of 4 and you get upset when you don't win, like, I think you're doing EDH wrong. And that's how I did Standard. I wasn't at the point where I liked winning. I was at the point where I hated losing. So I stopped playing competitive Magic as much because it just losing really felt bad. And when I played EDH, losing didn't feel bad because I was sort of like, all right, well, we did fun stuff. We slugged at each other with these big dirtly decks. You know, it felt like playing Type 4 to me. That was, you know, what we kind of did between rounds before there was EDH. We all played Type 4. So getting to do big, stupid stuff and ramping into spells that you'd never play in a normal game of Magic was great. We didn't like EDH because everyone lived long enough to summon big stuff. We liked EDH because you ramped into it and just did it fast. And, you know, we could play, you know, in a 6-hour session, we could play 4 or 5 or 6 games, you know, provided someone could wrap things up. So I didn't like dirtily decks that, like, just couldn't kill anybody. They, like, locked everybody out and, like, well, I got no way to kill you, so this game's going to take 3 more hours while I draw half my deck. I didn't like that. And I didn't like the people like, all right, it's turn 2, it's time to infinite combo, everybody. Do you like that? Was that fun? So I couldn't get Shroom the way I wanted it. Because the way I built Shroom, it was either a Dirtle deck where I'm like, oh man, I'm going to put all these counters on Lux Cannon and then you guys are dead. Or it was, oh, I better ordeal everyone's entire decks because I was making copies of Shroom, you know, with something that copied Shroom and I just got the infinite cycle going and then bitter ordealed everybody out. I couldn't get a happy medium. And that frustrated me because I couldn't get the deck the way I wanted it. And then I realized that was actually something I was targeting. I was trying to shoot for something that was between what I considered someone dirtling and someone trying to win 4 out of 4 games on turn 6. So I kind of said, I kind of like my decks to be sort of like 75% of the, you know, the spikiest deck possible. And it was sort of a qualitative thing. And I think everyone's kind of run with it. And some people are like, well, it's not a very good title because that makes people think it's mathematical or, you know, quantitative. It's not, it's qualitative. I'm sort of like, yeah, it's like it doesn't mean the deck's bad, and it doesn't mean you add bad cards or don't make it as good as it could be on purpose. It just means that when I'm thinking about, I'm like, well, I could add these cards to optimize the deck, but I'd rather not do that. I would rather just go build a different deck and get it to where it's going to win 1 out of every X games, where X is the number of people playing. It's not going to run a ton of face-down tutors. It's not going to run a ton of card draw. And it's not going to try to win the same game the same way every time. I think that was and it's kind of funny, when I was writing it, I sort of discovered the stuff I was thinking by writing about different decks. I didn't realize that what I wanted to do was not win the same way every time until I started writing about decks that had Laboratory Maniac. And I've always been of the opinion that I don't want to run a Laboratory Maniac deck because all you do is draw your whole deck and play Lab Maniac, and that's like the only way that deck wins. And I never really realized that that's what I didn't like about those decks until I wrote about a deck with Lab Maniac in it. So it's kind of funny, like, I didn't have these rules in mind when I first started. I just kind of sat down and started writing the series, and every time someone sent me a deck or looked at one of mine, I'm like, well, that's another thing I think, and that's why I built this way. So it's almost like the ethos, like, revealed itself to me the more I wrote about it. So that's what has been kind of, you know, fun and challenging about it for me. It's sort of revealed itself, you know, and I've tried to codify kind of the way I instinctively built EDH, and I think I've done a pretty decent job. I'm at the point where I'm not really discovering more rules. I'm just trying to do more challenging things. Like, eventually I'll tackle Shroom, I think. I'll do an article where I'm like, all right, I put it off. I'm finally going to see if I can make 75% Shroom to my liking. That'll be like my final challenge, I guess.
I've started applying this philosophy to my decks in the last few months. Generally, my philosophy about winning EDH is I'm happy if I'm in the final 2 of any table. Because that way I've played the maximum amount of Magic that I could have played in that game. When there's only one person left, the game is over. So I had a Gave, however you want to pronounce that commander's name, which was just a stack of combos and, you know, the ability to cast them. Now, I only whip that deck out occasionally because it does just go, right, I'm sick to death of being beaten around, I'm going to try and get this out. But then I started stripping bits of the combo piece out, or stuff which had, like, like 2 different cards that essentially achieve the same combo in different ways, I'd take one of them out of the deck and put something worse in. And the deck actually wins more now because I'm hated less at the table. I get more of a time to develop my board state because I'm not just getting targeted by everyone sitting over there going, oh, he's going to Mikaeus Triskelion, we'll pick any number of combos in that deck. The infinite damage us out to death on 1 drop, and you're like, yeah, okay. And it's made my games of Magic more fun. I think it's made my paper groups Magics more fun as well. And I've tried to encourage it as a philosophy amongst our other players. Some people have taken it on board, some people less so, but it's really good.
I think the only thing that surprised me more than like how quickly it was adopted was how many people hate it.
Yeah.
Hate the 75% philosophy. There's people foam at the mouth, like, and that could just be because Reddit is a cesspool, and that's where I get most of the feedback. Because that's where human garbage lives, right? But
where all the Kevin Smith fans hang out, eh? Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's people hiding behind their computers. People would never say that to me if they met me. They'd be like, oh, 75%, I don't really agree. I'd be like, hey, that's cool. But on Reddit, they're like, well, maybe you should stop telling people to play bad cards and play Magic wrong. I think people that get a whiff of what they call the spirit of EDH, and they use that phrase as a slur, you know, they don't want to hear about the spirit of EDH. They want to smash people just like they were playing, you know, at the top 8 of the Pro Tour.
But those people probably shouldn't be playing EDH as well. Now, who am I to tell people who...
Exactly, and I don't... Far be it from me to... They're already accusing me of condescending to them, so I'm certainly not going to say that, but...
Those guys aren't welcome at my gaming table in my meta, and those guys are people I'll actively avoid sitting at a table with in my LGS, so...
Well, they wouldn't like my group either, so that's totally fine. There's no one way to play EDH, and I never really wanted to set it up as like, this is how you should build, because not all my decks are 75%, and it's not me not practicing what I preach, it's just like, I don't always want to do that. Sometimes somebody needs to get Maelstrom Wanderer. Sometimes they're asking for it. But sometimes a guy's playing his Ramirez de Pietro pirate-themed Fun Times deck, and I'm not going to smash his I'm not going to smash his face on turn 4 because he's trying to cast Coastal Piracy, and I'm going off. You know, like, I'll cast Pirate Ship. I'm like, I'll tooth and nail for Zealous Conscripts and Geeky Jeeky. Good game, nerd.
That's excellent.
Fun times. So, what? Do you have a go-to? I'm sick to death of playing this. Spiky player. Spiky's wrong. There's a phrase in. I used to play competitive Warhammer to quite a high standard, and there's a phrase called a whack player, which is short for win at all costs, which I believe is what we call spiky, but meaning it's an insult. If someone calls you a whack, it's insult.
We call them tryhards in the US.
Right, okay. So if you sit down with a tryhard / whack, what's your go-to deck to say, no, I'm going to school you today?
Maelstrom Wanderer. That was never 75%. And it keeps getting better as they print better cards for it.
Yeah, mine keeps evolving as well.
What's the last card you added to Maelstrom?
Oh, man, it was something... Temur Ascendancy and Temur Banner.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Mine was Phyrexia, Solar New Phyrexia.
Oh, nice.
That was thanks to the Command Zone guys recommending it. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I really like the banners. Because I was playing Darksteel Ingot before, and the banners just so good. I mean, it's not great for every deck, but I'm really hoping we get more banners.
So what is it about the banners that you really like?
Well, it just does everything you want a card to do. It's not a worthless draw late. Like, if I'm trying to find an answer or something like that, or just trying to wrap the game up, and I cascade into a Simic Signet, I'm like, oh, great, that's a whiff. But a banner's not a whiff. Mind Stone was a good card. People were playing Mind Stone over Fire Diamond in mono red for a reason.
Yeah,
So the ability to draw, to shrink your deck, to turn itself into not a dead draw late, but still be just as useful as a Darksteel Ingot early. Like, the number of times I've been like, my Darksteel Ingot doesn't get blown up, it's indestructible. Like, I'm probably losing every other permanent, so, like, it doesn't even...
So Commander Sphere was a good card for you then.
Yeah, exactly. Commander Sphere was perfect. So I really like the banners. I think that's a well-designed card with EDH in mind.
Oh, that's excellent.
Jason, I have a question about this. So decks are constantly evolving. I think most of us keep tuning our decks. A deck's never finished. Have you ever, or at what point, is a deck that you applied the 75% philosophy to. Have you sat there and just gone, oh, I've broken the philosophy now, I've tuned it too much?
Yeah, that happens, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine. Like, I don't mind, because I'll just make another deck soon. You know, I'm up to 12. I'll make another deck, so it doesn't, you know, it's not a big deal.
So if you hit that breaking point on a deck, do you then just can the philosophy and say, right, I'm going to tune this as hard as I can now?
Yeah, why not? Like, there's no 80% philosophy as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's qualitative. You're building with those deck building guidelines in mind, or you just might as well build the best deck you can. Or the most fun. Like, I've definitely gone the other way. I've like, well, this isn't going to work 75% just because it's not really... It's because a 75% deck has to be able to win against 3 other whacks or tryhards or whatever we want to call them. You know, if you play tight, get a little lucky, you should be able to win 1 out of every X games with everybody with 100% decks too. So if the deck just isn't good enough, I'll be like, you know what, I'll just make this fun. I have a couple, you know, dirtily fun decks. My Varel deck I cannot make good. I don't know what it is. I keep playing Varel way more than I should. I really love it, but it just doesn't win.
Yeah, I've got a Sand Triplets deck that's exactly like that.
He's like, I love this deck. It may be my favorite deck, but I can't win with it.
Yeah.
Like, I got a million counters on a Colonian Hydra, and I'm still not getting there. It's weird. So, yeah, I'll abandon the 75% principles on a deck if it's not there either way, either toward either end of the power spectrum. Definitely.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, it was surprising to me that I heard people who were upset about the 75% philosophy. A lot of people thought that you were doing it basically just to sell some of the cards that were maybe moving a little bit more slowly.
You know, no one said that to me. That's really funny. No one has ever said that to me.
It was one of the topics I heard in our local game store.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I couldn't believe it. So
Are you like the Kaiser Soze of MTG Finance?
I don't think so, because like
the
it
markets.
seems like the people that like 75% don't even know I'm a finance guy. Like I've never really met a ton of groups of people, you know, outside of like content producers like you guys and other podcasters. Everyone's like, oh, you do this and that, but like usually people want to talk to me about one thing, and I never know if they even know I do anything else.
And of course, if he was Kaiser Soze, he would never admit
I would
it.
never tell you.
That's
No,
true.
absolutely.
Do you have a limp when you walk? Or is it all...
Only when he
put on?
needs it.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep. Only when I'm trying to throw people off my scent. Yeah, I play EDH. I pretend not to know anything about finance.
I have
Like
this-
someone opens a card, I'm like, oh, is that valuable? I don't even know.
I have this image of you sitting at home in a room, darkened room, maybe candlelit, with just boxes of cards all around you. And you're searching through for one box, which has maybe got a card in it which you bought into heavily but didn't take off, and going, this one I shall manipulate the markets for next. Whoa.
If I could, Seance would be a $9 card and I live in a bigger house. Seance is really good. It's really, really good. Because it does stuff that black does,
Is it the thing that
but it
pulls
does it for
tokens-
4 mana.
Tokens in for, but it really only triggers ETB effects, is that it?
Yeah, but that's great. We love ETB effects in white and blue-white and green-blue-white.
So
We like-
Seance is a 4 CMC enchantment, converted mana cost enchantment, 2 and 2 whites. And it says at the beginning of each upkeep you may exile target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that card, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. It's a rare from Dark Ascension.
And then you populate. So the story behind Seance was, if I can like do a brief aside, it wasn't even during Innistrad block that we were really on this card, because there was that deck with the blue spirit that you would just deck yourself and then win with Lab Maniac. Mirror Mad Phantasm is the card, yeah. I'm really bad with card names.
I know the one.
So there was a Mirror Mad Phantasm Seance deck, and it was just dirtily and terrible. When Return to Ravnica came out, the zombie deck was very good, and to beat it, we were finding ourselves casting the Centaur, gaining the 3 life, chump blocking with the Centaur, seancing it back, and then all of a sudden you play a Trostani. We just weren't losing games. We were going up to like 70 life against the zombies decks, and they just couldn't beat us. They'd get gassed, and then we would just populate a bunch of like Centaurs or whatever, we played. So anything you bring back from the graveyard, if you start copying and populating with Trostani, if you play Rootborn Defenses, when you've got some number of blockers, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I gained 3 life there. Okay, I play Armada Worm, get another Armada Worm. That's 2 Trostani triggers. We were doing really big stuff in Standard, and the deck just felt really strong. Because Populate only works on tokens, but that was a way to make a non-token creature a token. So all of a sudden you're cheating. Like, you're making a copy of Armada. You're able to copy the Armada Worm, not just the 5/5 worm it makes. You can populate the Armada Worm itself and you get 2 tokens. So it was really strong in Standard. And like, no one really cared much, because everyone was just sort of like, yeah, we'll just play on Burial Rites. We'll just add black and just play on Burial Rites and just Crater Hoof everybody out. So the fact that the people added black so easily, and it concentrated more on just having a better late game than having a better early game, which is what we were focused on. Seance never really took off. And when Ryan Bouchard and I talked about the card, it looked like we were just trying to talk about a bad card and make a bulk rare worth money because we were heavily invested. So I understand people.
Anyone that wants to buy a Seance, they're available for $20 from Jason E. Alt.
Well, apparently when it did, there was a Modern deck that was running Seance, and then somebody bought out a store and burned them all or something weird like that. Like, wasn't me, wasn't Ryan. It was nobody we know. But someone's like, oh, I'm just burning Seances, they'll be worth millions. I'm like, this isn't like Amazing Fantasy number 15 where like you burn 1 copy and then like, oh no, there's only 145 copies left. This is a card they printed tens of or maybe hundreds of thousands of copies of. So I don't know if burning them's going to necessarily do it, but definitely writing about it on Quiet Speculation is not going to make it go up either. So I don't know. I think history will be kind to Seance, and when it does, I've got a lot of copies and a lot of foils and a lot of foreign foils. And I play with it. It's a good EDH card in the right deck. I really love to populate, and I think Trostani's a sweet general.
Yeah, I think we've swerved way off the topic of the 75% rule. So we've gone into finance.
It's all related. It's all related.
This podcast has been brought to you by the card Seance.
In about 10 or 15 years, maybe. So we have our first listener question. I think, Jason, you were following along as we asked on Twitter. So you may have already answered this one. In fact, I know you have. At Matt Book on Twitter asks, if you were to build a new EDH deck with Shu Yun as the commander, what direction would you take? First instinct.
Okay, so when I was asked to help spoil Shu Yun, I was very happy about that. Gathering Magic got a preview card, and Adam Staborski kind of took a few of the writers, and he's like, all right, I want a few of you writing about this, so let's talk about the modern implications, let's talk about the financial implications. And he had me write about it, and he's like, what about the commander applications of Shu Yun? And what I immediately saw was I saw a Rafik-esque creature that could let you go wide as opposed to going big. So you can give multiple creatures, double strike, and you can also use his prowess to make him big. And I see a mono blue general that allows you to play in a Jeskai colored deck, which I thought was really cool. Having those the red-white hybrid activations on Shu Yun, it's the the Thalon of Havenwood rule. You can play him in a 3-color deck.
Yeah,
so I think that's really cool. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, all right, what do we have is a card that can be as potent as Rafik of the Many, but isn't going to automatically draw aggro. Because there's no point in making a 75% Rafik of the Many deck. Because you're going to be like, hey guys, this is Rafik Human Knights Tribal. We're going to have a wacky fun time. I'm playing Bite at Athasa. Go. And people are like, I'm going to kill you before you... But it's tribal. It's fun. Stop. No one's going to give you a shot. Everyone's going to see Rafik and they're like, yeah, let's kill this guy first, right? Everybody vote. Yep. Unanimous. So I thought Shu Yun could be Rafik-esque. You could either build it Voltron, or you could go wide and give multiple creatures double strike, and then have anthems and stuff like that. There's lots of different ways you could build it.
I never thought about him like that. That's a good take on him.
So I called it the Rafik problem. The Rafik problem is like, you can build a 75% EDH Rafik deck, but don't, because no one's gonna care. They're just gonna murder you like it's not a 75% deck. So if you're gonna build Rafik, you might as well build the best deck you can. So I built a Shu Yun deck that only has about 12 creatures. One of them being Dragon-style twins, because that was another card that had been spoiled. But I have Daxos in the deck. I have Godo. Jorkadine, in case you want to go wide. I got Newmont, Thought Idel. I really like getting those hit triggers, so I like double hitting with Daxos. I like double hitting with Thought. I like double hitting with Newmont. So I thought it was pretty cool to have multiple creatures in the deck that he could grant double strike to. Or you could go, I'm going to build a big Shuyan by playing all these spells. And as soon as I thought that, I was like, oh man, this is the best possible Sunforger deck.
I forgot about Sunforger.
Because he's got double strike, so he's got that +4, plus you can get any spell to trigger his prowess, plus you can solve all kind of problems, get stuff out of your deck. You can go get a Turn of Burn or a Wing Shards or, all kind of stuff. So, I put those two things together in my head. I was like, this is a Rafiq where you're not going to draw as much aggro. And like you were saying, you're once you took some of the infinite combos out of the Gave deck, people are sort of like, all right, we don't need to kill him turn 3.
Yeah.
So people will give you a chance to set up. They see Shuyan, they're like, all right, what's Shuyan up to?
Yeah, who is this guy?
So I have like some Batterskull type stuff if you want to go big, but I also have cards like Teleportal if you want to go wide. So I think it's that was my first instinct anyway. So it's funny that he asked that because I'd already written the article.
Yeah.
Anyone playing a Voltron type commander when they hit tables, so Sigurd is another good example. I normally look them in the eye and say, are you running Eldrazi Conscription? And if they won't answer me, that means yes they are. And if they say yes they are. And if they say no, they probably are anyway and are just lying bastards. So they have to die.
Yes.
I hate that card.
You trust your fellow humans, I see.
Well, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
Trust but verify.
Shuyan is my tiny leader.
Yeah, that's how I learned about tiny leaders, actually. Someone in the comments section of that article was like, this would be a good tiny leader. I'm like, I don't know what those words are.
Phil's played Phil and Nate have both played my tiny leader deck. I think it's quite good.
Yes.
I mean, those are the colors you want to be in, and I like Sunforger and tiny leaders even better.
Yeah. Have you got a deck list for your Shuyan deck somewhere, Jason?
Oh, he absolutely does. In fact, he answered with a link to the article where he wrote about it, and we'll include that link in the show notes. I was looking it over while you guys were talking, and it's pretty devastating for a 75% deck.
I mean, I kind of just farted the list out. I never really know if it's going to be like tuned up. It's sort of like, here is a list of cards that I think should be in the deck based on philosophy, and then here is stuff that makes a Magic deck not be terrible, like mana, rocks, and lands. So every 75% deck I write about in an article needs to be tested and tuned up, but preliminarily, I think philosophically, you want to have Stonehewer Giant and Godo in the deck, stuff like that. So
yeah, I think this is a deck that we should maybe play test at some point.
I own all of these cards, so I might chuck it together.
And I want to put Quietus Spike in every deck. Like every deck needs Quietus Spike.
It's a funny
like
card.
Basilisk Collar is more expensive, and that's fine.
It makes friends.
Yeah, Quietus Spike's nutty. Like I actually, the dream is putting Quietus Spike on a Deathbringer Thoctor, and then just machine gunning their whole board. And that's dirty and devastating, but it's also pretty 75%. It's not like you can tooth and nail for both of those cards or anything like that. It's like if Providence wills it that you get that combo, go to town.
I've used Basilisk Collar on Mareth before, and it's hideous when it happens. For a while, I was running as many Death Touch Granters as possible in Mareth.
That's cool, and there's quite a lot if you really go. There's like cards. I'm like, I didn't know Gorgon Flail was a thing. That card's not even worth money. Like, I don't even pick that out of bulk. I bet it's probably money now, all these years later. But yeah, it's really funny how many cards do it. But Quietus Spike is my favorite.
Yeah, Quietus Spike is a lot of fun. Actually, Gorgon Flail isn't too expensive. A near mint foil is $1.48, so on TCG Player. Click add to shopping cart. I have Gorgon Flail already, but I could use a foil for $1.50.
Yeah, I bought a foil Fire Shriek here because it was like a pound. I was like, oh, I'll have that, yeah.
And from my perspective, as someone who sells the buy list a lot, I'm like, yeah, it's 8 cents. I guess that's worth putting in the cart.
And now
We'll pay 8 cents for a Gorgon Flail. I'm going to send him 100 and make him regret it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great branch right into our MTG Finance discussion. Can you talk a little bit before we start asking you questions and talking about this ridiculous spike this week? Can you talk about what got you into MTG Finance? And I don't think most of our listeners will know that you actually make your living off of this now, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So a couple years ago, Brainstorm Brewery podcast co-host, Gathering Magic writer, finance guy, Ryan Bouchard's actually local to me. We've known each other for, Like, what set was legal when I met Ryan? Future Sight, probably. So that's how far back we go. I don't even know what year it was. I just know it was Future Sight. We've known each other for a long time, and he was an engineer. I was an analytical chemist. We'd done our parents proud, gotten college degrees, gotten good jobs, doing that. And he's kind of like, I'm just sick of working for the man. And I was
That's
like,
my boy.
all right. He doesn't want to work for the man anymore. He's like, I don't know if I want to be an engineer anymore. I've been paid for tournaments by backpack grinding since I was like 8 years old. I think I might want to take a serious stab at doing MTG finance for a living. I think I could start my own business, build up backpack grinding into like having a real collection to trade into big stuff and where the high margin stuff is. He felt like he knew enough about it to quit his job for a while and see if he could take a serious stab at it. I was like, you know what? I'd love to help. I'd like to learn a little bit about value trading from you and that sort of thing. So if you ever want anybody to help, just let me know. If anything happens with my job, maybe I could supplement unemployment by doing that. And no sooner had I said if anything happens with my job that 3 months later I was on a 1-year contract with the company I was working at, and that 1-year contract lapsed and was not renewed.
Oh.
So I was like, all right, I could search really hard for another job as a chemist and possibly have to move. I just bought a house 2-3 months before that, so moving wasn't really an option. The company where I worked was like, hey, how would you like to do the same job in South Carolina? I was like, yeah, how'd you like to die? So I told Ryan, I'm like, hey, man, let's do this thing. So unemployment kind of gave me a nice cushion to be able to travel. So that's what we did. We just traveled. And that was like the end of value trading. Sort of like by the time Avacyn Restored came out, it wasn't really a thing anymore. Everyone had their smartphone, and like you weren't ripping people off as a value trader. You were getting a card that you thought was going to go up, and you were getting rid of a card you thought was going to go down or was at its peak, So we always traded speculatively. Like, you don't have to rip somebody off if you're trading a $2 card that buy lists for 50 cents for a $2 card that buy lists for $1.25. You're making a ton of money trading straight across the board. The problem is everyone got their phone out and they're like, well, hang on, let me look up the value of every single card.
Oh,
and the trade takes 2 hours, and they're like, oh, it's 10 cents in your favor. That's BS. I'm not going to do it. So value trading it became, you just didn't want to sit down with that many people and do that much. So MTG Finance has evolved a little bit over the years into a little bit more speculation. You tend to serve your community by getting cards that people want and bringing them back and doing the trade that way, rather than going up to somebody, hey man, got trades? Because I even hate the hey man, got trades guy. Like when I'm sitting there playing ADH and someone comes up to me and they're like, hey man, got trades? I'm like, get out of my face! Right. So I'm glad I wasn't really that guy for that long. And the people that clearly want to trade are not the people I want to trade with, because they're reading my articles and they're trying to get me, not knowing who I am. So, it's.
Do you run into that a lot?
Oh yeah, like just people just don't know me. At events. I mean, people do, but like some people really don't, which is cool. So some people come up like, hey man, got trades? And I'm like, I don't even have a binder anymore. I got boxes, I mostly just flip collections and, buy speculatively, stuff that it's clearly going to go up. And that's kind of how MTG Finance has evolved. So I'm kind of glad that the death of value trading kind of happened. There's still some people that do it, but I think it's better to like go to your LGS and be like, what do you need for your deck that isn't around? You could trade into it with me rather than buy it. If people don't want to pay cash, they just want to do trade value, I'll get stuff for people and then I'll value trade with people that ask me to get them a card. And that works out pretty well.
And that's where you play a 75% deck that makes a card really shine and then move a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. I mean, but I've noticed that like just talking about a card sometimes can make it spike if I make a really convincing argument.
Fate
like
Stitcher.
Sunforger.
Fate Stitcher. Sorry.
Well, Fate Stitcher was camera. That was the World Championship. That did that.
It was Josh Lee
Sunforger was my fault. Sunforger actually went nuts. Like there were 10 foils on TCG Player, and they were like $10. So someone spent $100 to make the foil price of Sunforger hit 100 for one day.
Wow.
And it's calmed down. It's where the stuff equilibrates. So people see that big spike, they're like, oh no, the big spike. If that holds, then it was going to do that eventually anyway. And if it doesn't hold, it'll equilibrate where the price should be. So the market takes care of itself, because you can't get 100 people with one copy of a card to collude and make a card $100 forever. You know, they're going to be like, hey, what if I sold mine for 99 and the rest of these, dudes are selling theirs for 100? They'll buy mine first because it's 99. And then people start to race each other to the bottom, and where the card ends up is where it should be. So, like, if a card spikes, just wait, give it a minute. It's going to end up where it should be. So that's what I like to tell people anyway.
Nate's been watching a couple of MTG stocks?
MTGstocks.com, yeah.
MTG
Yeah,
Stocks
so
is that's a pretty good site. MTG Price is the one I use because I write for them, but also because I like their tools. But I definitely like MTG Stocks as well.
So there's been a few notable spikes in the last few weeks that Nate's been pointing out to us, and I was interested to if you have a look at those. What's made that card spike? It's probably different in all cases. Nate, what cards were they?
So we got Oblivion Stone that it was originally 14, it went to 49, and it's now at around 31. And these are all non-foil prices. I'm not going to mention the foil prices. They're just even crazier. Deceiver Exarch had been holding for around $1.20 for most of its existence.
Yeah.
It jumped to $7.50, and now it's back down at $4.25. Snapcaster Mage, it's been expensive for a while, but it jumped by $20 over the past week.
So the cynical EDH player in me says, I'm just blaming that on Modern.
It's something different every time. Snapcaster was dealers targeting it. Dealers started paying very aggressive prices on Snapcaster Mage at GP Cleveland. That continued when a bunch of dealers showed up with a lot of money to GP Vegas, and maybe 20% of all the Snapcaster Mages in the United States were in the one room, and they start paying really aggressively. People are like, they're paying 55 on Snapcaster. Out deal, ship. That's how it happens. If dealers want to aggressively target a card, they will. Snapcaster, nobody really predicted it would get to $50 within, this soon of it being legal, with it being a non-mythic in the post-mythic era, even as good as it is. It's played some in Legacy, it's played some in Modern, but it's not as ubiquitous as its current price would suggest. That's just dealers saying, hey, we know that Snapcaster is a very good card. It's gonna go up. It's the blue Bob, it's the blue Tarmogoyf, it's the blue Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
Snapcaster Mage is a very, very good card. It's tough to reprint it. And if they did reprint it, it would probably be as a judge foil. That's not going to affect the non-foil price anyway. So it's just something that dealers are like, this is a blue chip. We're all in. They targeted it, and that's not anything pernicious on their part. That was them saying, we want to make sure we have enough Snapcaster Mages. And, a lot of the same people that are mad at the dealers for doing that don't realize that it's other players that are selling their copies for what those dealers are paying that made that possible. So for every time a dealer buys a card, there's another person willing to sell. So that's
Takes two to tango and all that nonsense.
Absolutely. So that's something I think people realize they're left out. That's why people feel bad on these spikes. They see Oblivion Stone go up and they're like, but I wanted Oblivion Stone. I wasn't going to buy one this week, but I was going to get around to buying one in the next 6 months, and now it's more expensive. I'm left out. I feel terrible. I wanted to have Oblivion Stone. I understand how that would feel bad.
I'm still weeping.
Yeah, but
I'm weeping right now.
But I mean, the price was going to climb to that in the 6-month period where you were dragging your feet anyway. And if it, if it ends up at wherever it ends up is where it was going to go anyway. This just made it happen a little faster. I think the fact that Tron had a really good showing, and I think a lot of people are predicting that maybe Amulet of Vigor's days are numbered in Modern. I think there's as many people are trying to sell their Amulet of Vigor stuff now. There's people looking at other stuff. I think Scapeshift has got upside if Amulet combo gets banned, because I think people will play Scapeshift again. And Tron being good is something that's going to be good for Modern. And when people see Tron good, they're like, well, what's in Tron that gets played? Karn getting reprinted, that price coming down, was good for Tron.
It's good for EDH.
Good for EDH too. Yeah, cheaper Karns. There's so many EDH goodies in Modern Masters. It almost feels like it's EDH Masters and they threw in some Modern cards as an afterthought. Like, oh yeah, you know what, Bitter Blossom and and Primeval Titan, and yeah, those we need some Modern cards in this EDH set. So I think Modern Masters has been very good for EDH. We got a lot of reprints of a lot of stuff that we really want. So yeah. I'm happy about it. Like anytime you see something like that's like $15, like Creekwood Liege go to like $4, that's amazing.
So how about the cases where you have a card that's been low for a while and recently it shot back up to a previous price? Like, for example, this week, Huntmaster of the Fells and Olivia Voldaren, they were pretty low for a long time.
Well, no one was playing Jund. If you remember 2 weeks ago, people were like, man, why did they put Dark Confidant in Modern Masters? Dark Confidant sucks. And I said on Brainstorm Brewery, I'm like, all it would take was one shift in the metagame. I don't know if it's a card in Battle for Zendikar. I don't know if it's a banning or an unbanning. All it takes is a Jund deck to be good again, and all of a sudden people want 4 Dark Confidants for their Jund deck. And, like, no sooner had I said that people were like, hey, maybe we want to take a second look at Jund, because that Amulet combo deck is pretty good, but if you shred their hand, coupled with the fact that that deck mulligans pretty poorly, maybe a turn 1 Thoughtseize is all you need to make that deck just terrible.
Yeah,
so
my
Jund picked up a little bit more, I think.
My Fairies deck shreds people's hands, and it's awful.
Well, you need to do other unfair stuff too, like play Huntmaster of the Fells and, you know,
Yeah.
Olivia, steal their creatures.
I've dipped my toe into Modern lately, and basically it was chewed off by piranhas as fast as I could pull it out of the water. Yeah,
Wow.
it's savage.
I don't think I've seen Dark Confidant this low.
Yeah, it's silly, isn't it?
That's what a reprint will do to you.
Well, the reprint didn't necessarily do anything major to the price of Tarmogoyf for Vendilion Click or anything like that. So I think it's the lack of demand to the same extent that it was the reprinting.
So I have a question, right? So this is a morals question. So someone in my play group turned around to me one time and went, I was thinking of trading these in. And he had 4 original Bob's Dark Confidants. And I was like, all right. He goes, I was thinking for about £10 each, so that's about $14. And he got them originally, was just getting back into Magic, didn't realise that card had become what it had. And I was, do I buy them off him and then make a giant profit? But I wussed out and said, no, you need to relook at the price of that. You're well undercutting yourself if you sell them for £10 each. Would you have done that? Or would you have gone, yeah, I'll take them off your hands?
I've done both. You know,
I'm
it's
too nice to
sometimes
be a finance
sometimes
guy.
it's hard to argue with people if they tell you a price, and sometimes they're just super. I'll give you 2 examples. There've been a lot of examples of times where I've told people, no, that's not the price at all, dude. Look that up. And other times where it was something that somebody just didn't care about. The guy I was trading with, he was like, man, I opened a whole box of Innistrad and I didn't even get a single Ludovic's test subject. It's lame, man. I wanted a Ludovic's test subject. I was like, I have infinity of them. And he saw that I had the promo in my bind. He's like, oh my god, would you take a Garruk? And my snap decision was, yeah, absolutely. I'll take a Garruk. And then, the part of you that's a human being goes, well, come on. This guy's happier about the Ludovic's test subject than you are about the Garruk. But still, give him a playset, help him find some other Sea Monsters cards from, your bulk rares. Like, set the guy up. Like, he had a good day, because he would have been happier with the Ludovic's test subject than I was with the Garruk. And, the fact that he got a whole playset out of it just made his week. So I've definitely, I still got him, quote unquote, for like $10 in the trade, but he got 10 cards off of me. He got some deck building advice, got a conversation out of it, and he had a great day. So if you're telling a little kid, oh, that card's not $10, it's $1, they're like, all right, and then that's scummy. If someone tells you what they want for your card, it's really hard to argue with them sometimes.
Yeah, this was a friend, so he still is a friend.
Well, I don't think it's any better to do it to a stranger.
I think if it was a stranger, I might have taken those 4 Bobs off him for £40. But as a friend, I was like, I can't do this.
But have you ever been in the other side of that and gone home and looked up the price and felt that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're like, oh no? I don't want anybody to experience that.
No,
because
I'm not that. I'm smarter than that.
Yeah, you don't want anyone to go home and feel that, So
It's bad business.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're not going to get repeat business if you rip somebody off. They're going to see one of your articles and be like, oh, that guy? Yeah, that guy. He let me trade him 1 Garruk for a Ludovic's test subject, and I felt like terrible for the next week. I don't want to do that to anybody.
When doing straight card trading in my local game store, I found because I'm not a finance guy at all. As long as I'm happy with the deal, so I guess I'm the Ludovic's test subject guy, then the other guy can get a profit on it. But I've had people refuse me a trade because they owe me essentially $3 off the TCG player price. They've gone, no, I'm ripping off by $3. I've gone, well, there's nothing else I want in your file. Just trade, I'm happy. I don't want any junk off you. It's just taking up space. And they've said, no, you take cards off me. I'm like, okay, pick 3 random junk rares out of your file and give them to me. I just don't care. Weird. That's
value is subjective, though. Like, money is a good baseline value. All things being equal, why not have the cards be equal in value? But there's something to be said for people just wanting the convenience of not having to buy the card from DCG Player. They have a sentimental attachment to a card that transcends, strict monetary value. For whatever reason, people value cards in things other than money, and there's something to be said for that.
You get an emotional pull to certain cards, I guess. I was going to pay over the odds for a foil Thasser, God of the Sea, because I adore that card. It might be my favourite card in all of Magic. My friend Pete pulled one from a booster, and he ended up just swapping it with me for a regular Thasser because he knew how much I loved it. Oh, isn't that nice?
Aww,
but I would have paid
Pete.
through the nose for that bad boy.
Yeah, without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I would just go, there you go.
I traded an Umezawa's Jite for a signed Bird of Paradise
Cool.
without even thinking. I was like, whatever.
Very cool.
Oh, it's signed by Mark Poole. He's my favorite art. And then I realized that the reason it's cool to have a signed Birds by Mark Poole is because you met him. I've since met him and bought prints and stuff from him. We exchange emails. That's better than just like, wow, I got the card. But like, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, I have to have it. I didn't even think. So that's, I've been gotten in trades too. I know how it feels, but that was not one where I felt bad later. That was like, oh man, that guy got me a signed Bird. That's awesome. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, value is subjective.
We have another listener question I want to ask here. Nicholas Jaragoski on Facebook writes, Hi Jason, given the spike, what cards should EDH players buy into now before they climb out of reach? Also, Viva la tokens!
I'm not sure to which spike he's referring. Like, some modern cards kind of went nutty this week,
Yeah.
speculatively, but I don't think that's going to affect a ton of EDH stuff. You can't really force spikes artificially as easily as some people think. They see an unregulated financial market and they're like, oh no, people could do anything. The robber barons are gonna. It's not really a thing. You saw, you might have seen the report of the fake tournament report where the guys were trying to make dramatic entrance spike because they had bought out Moto or whatever. It's tough. So I think there has to be a rationale for card spiking. I'm not too worried about much in EDH getting out of reach, unless you didn't already have your O-Stones. The thing about EDH that's so great is, like, most cards are legal, so you could just play Perilous Vault or Nev's Disc until, O-Stone comes down and gets reprinted in another supplement. So I'm not... What spike? Is there a specific card he mentioned, or did he just say...
I'm going to guess Oblivion Stone, but it's just a guess.
The O-Stone and a couple of other cards that
there was
this week.
There was Olivia and Huntmaster, and it's mostly modern stuff.
I think Olivia Voldaren is a popular Rakdos commander, isn't she?
Yeah, she's very good. I like Olivia in my in a deck with quite a spike because that's how I roll.
Weirdly, she's my tribal vampires commander, and that was quite a spike in it.
I really like to put Gorgon Flail on her and just assassinate their whole team. It's not fun for them, but it's slow and dirtily, and
lol.
They have to let you do that. That's what I tell myself.
I have a question. That was the first part of our interview with Jason Alt. Tune in next time for the exciting conclusion to our interview with Jason. All of this information will be in our show notes, and in the meantime, you can find Jason pretty much everywhere. You can find Jason's articles at GatheringMagic.com, where he first coined the term 75% decks. You can find him giving out advice to the MTG finance community at MTGprice.com. On Twitter, he's at Jason E. Alt. You can also find Jason on his excellent podcasts, Brainstorm Brewery and Money Draft, where, while they are not family-friendly, they are fantastic and funny with an eye on where the dollars are going in Magic. We'll talk to you next time on Commanderin.